Namaste, Suprabhatam, all of you. Today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Jigar Adhyaru, and he is an NRI right now. And he is actually a very learned person. So, as you all know, today we are here for a special topic, that is, we are discussing conflict resolution based on Shadgunyam by Chanakya. All of you know Chanakya, Kautilya, right? So a concept given by him called Shadgunyam, and through that we are going to understand what conflict resolution is in the management field. And Mr. Jikar Adhyaru is the perfect person to explain all that stuff to us. And let me give a brief introduction of Mr. Jikar Adhyaru. He has done Bachelor of Arts, that is BA and B.Ed from Gujarat University, first class, definitely. And also he has done Diploma of Sanskrit teaching from Somnath Sanskrit University. So he is a great scholar of Sanskrit as well. And right now he is in Melbourne, Australia, and he is actually an English trainer at Polytechnic in Melbourne, right?
Yes.
Right. Right. So I think this much introduction would be enough for now, because we do have less time and a lot more to talk about. So this Shadgunyam, we will talk about 6 gunas that Chanakya ji has talked about. But in today's session, we will talk about 3 gunas. And in the next session, that will probably be in the next week, it will be told to you. So other 3 gunas will be explained in the next session. So today we are going to talk about only the first 3 gunas, and in the next session we are going to talk about other 3 gunas. So this will be a 2-part series of discussing Shadgunyam. So Mr. Jigar, over to you. Please explain what conflict resolution is, first of all.
Definitely. Before I start, I'd like to thank you, everybody. Thank you for taking out time and joining us. And thank you, Jayanta, for arranging this. I really appreciate it. We need this platform to, reach out for the betterment of Sanskrit language and literature as well. So thank you. What I'm going to do is I'll share my screen with you all. I've got a little presentation, and then we'll just go slide by slide. So bear with me as I share my screen with you all. At any point of time, if you would like me to slow down or explain something a little bit better, just let me know, or just put it in the chat box, and maybe Jayanta can keep a track of it and let me know. So as Jayanta said, what's happening is we're talking about Shadgunya. It's called the 6-fold policy in management. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at it from the perspective of conflict resolution. And as we go along, I'll explain it a little bit more in detail, and then we'll go from there. So what is conflict resolution? So it's basically 2 words squished together, as you could see, conflict and resolution. So conflict is when you disagree with somebody. It could be any kind of confrontation, and resolution comes from resolve, to resolve the conflict. So basically reaching to a level where 2 parties or more than 2 parties can come to a resolution. So that's conflict resolution. In management, they teach this as one of the management skills. But what I personally feel is conflict resolution happens around us pretty much every single day, and it should be taught as a life skill, because if we know how to get out of those small conflicts, we can lead a better or a successful life. So that's my perspective on Shadgunya by Chanakya, and that's what we're going to basically focus on this presentation. So before we jump into anything else, this is one of the couplets that has been shared by Chanakya in his book, and we'll talk about what book I'm talking about. But before we jump into that, this is something very, very important that we need to keep in mind, and which is called self-awareness. So nothing basically will happen in Chanakya's book without you're aware of your situation in that time, that particular date and time. So you have to make sure that you're asking yourselves these 6 questions pretty much on regular intervals, because unless you know what's going on around you, you can actually never move past anything. So before you jump onto resolving conflicts, you actually need to know your position. Where do you stand? Do you actually have the authority, or do you are you even able to resolve the conflict? Because sometimes it's simply out of your reach, and it doesn't actually matter where you stand. So you have to make sure that you're in a position to have that conflict resolved. So kaha kalaha kani mitrani ko deshaha ko vyayagamo kaschaham kachame shakti iti chintyam muhurmuhu. That means, again, this is my take on the couplet, is in order to lead a successful life, we need to ask ourselves these 6 questions very regularly. What are the circumstances? That means, where are you? What's going on around you? Are you able-bodied? Are you in a position to make any demands? What's going on? Plus, who are my friends? So if you are going into a conflict, you need to know who's going to support you, or are you alone in the conflict when it comes to negotiations? And where am I? Now, pretty much all the literature that you're going to see in Sanskrit, it has got something called Desh Kal, and that's something that you need to remember. So where are you, in which society, what kind of a structured society you live in, and what kind of a time it is. You need to you just simply need to act accordingly. So if you don't realize which country or which society you're in, and if you are not acting accordingly, again, it's going to become a huge problem for you. So basically, again, you need to keep in mind, and I'll link it up with when we go to Shadgunya, how this affects our conflict resolution agenda. Then, of course, how much money do you spend and earn, and who are you, or what skills do you have? So those are the things that you definitely need to know before you go into conflict resolution. Again, this is given by Chanakya in his book before actually Shadgunya is introduced. So that's first. And the second bit, my slogan, as you could see at the bottom, it's think local and think global. So different issues can have different resolutions and different implications. So even if they talk about one issue that is too big, you have to think local as well. How does it affect you? And I think this is the heart of Shadgunya, because Shadgunya in Chanakya's book, he has introduced it as a diplomacy policy. So if you're a king, how do you act towards other states around you, other kings around you? But that's thinking global. If we think local, just about ourselves, that's where it comes to conflict resolution. So if you're not happy with somebody or some situation in our lives, how can Shadgunya help us achieve those things? Okay, so self-awareness, you need to ask these questions to yourselves, and then of course think local and think global at the same time. The same issue, its implications on local basis and then global basis, how big or how small it could become. So before we jump into the discussion, of course, let's have a look. What is Shadgunya? So Chanakya has written, he's also known as Kautilya because he knew Kutil Niti very well, and that's why he's called Kautilya. And he's wrote the book called Arthashastra. And Arthashastra actually is very famously known as Chanakya Niti. So it's actually not the name of the book, it is just known as Chanakya Niti, but the name of the book is Arthashastra. And the book is actually subdivided into 15 subsections. Each section in itself is called one book. So book 1, book 2, book 3, and it goes on up until book 15. And Shadgunya is introduced in book number 7. And that's where he actually talks about diplomacy policies and how a king should act in case of his relationships with neighboring countries and what they need to do. So that's where Shadgunya comes from. Now, Shadgunya, it's pretty much, again, just like conflict resolution, it's 2 words squished together. Shad and Gunya. So Shad means 6 in Sanskrit, and Gunya means, of course, gunas or virtues. So here he's giving us 6 virtues or 6 things that we need to follow in order to achieve a nice outcome or a good conflict resolution. Now, something that is kind of anticlimactic of conflict resolution, one of the things that he's going to say is then there's just not going to be any resolution and you just go forward with the conflict. We're not going to focus on that one today because it's actually the last one. So we will talk about it in part 2. So the first 5 of the gunas actually talk about how and what you can do to actually resolve the conflict. And then the 6th is if nothing works, then you actually just go ahead with the conflict, and that's how you resolve it. Basically, you just go ahead with it and see what happens. So again, I would think that it's actually a solution, but again, I'm not sure whether it's actually resolving or not. But yes, okay. Again, if I'm going too fast, please let me know. Any questions so far, or anything you would like me to quickly re-explain? Anybody? So let's just jump into the 6 gunas that he has talked about, or 6-fold policy. So these are the 6 basic gun we have to follow, or we can use one by one to achieve a resolution to a conflict. And today we are going to focus on 3, which are Vigraha, Sandhi, and Dvaiti Bhava. So overall, we've got Vigraha, Sandhi, Asana, Yana, Samshraya, and Dvaiti Bhava. Okay, out of these 6, Vigraha, Sandhi, and Dvaiti Bhava are most of the time favorable. That means you still get something out of it, what you want. But Yana, Asana, and Samshraya, they talk about what will happen if you don't have the authority, or you just simply cannot stand your ground, and what happens in that case. So today we'll focus on the positive ones, and then next time we'll look at the ones that are not very positive, again, depending on where you come from. Okay, let's have a look at the first one. Okay, what is Vigraha? Vigraha is the first one, and I think this is one of the most common ways to resolve a conflict, and this happens in daily life. All around you. Again, all 6 actually happen in your daily lives all around you, and you actually deal with all your conflicts using this. You just don't realize that you're using this. So Vigraha is when out of 2 or more than 2 parties, one has the upper hand or the authority, and they feel that their will should be carried out. So if they think that this needs to happen, well, it just basically needs to happen. And most of the time this will happen when somebody has authority over you, or over the one that they want to, they want them to carry out whatever they need. So where do we see Vigraha happening every day? Most of the time you will see in your house or at your work, because when you're dealing with your superiors or your staff, you sometimes need to assert your authority. So for an example, if you're working in an office and your boss comes and says, I need this done by today, you're not feeling like it, what's going to happen to that conflict? Do you think you're going to win that if your boss feels that you need to finish it by the end of the day? Most of the time what's going to happen is, because they've got the authority, they've got the upper hand, this conflict is just not going to be a good idea. So this is, again, we need to be self-aware. We need to know, where do we stand? Can we go and fight to our boss? Can we go and fight to our manager and then go and say, no, I'm not going to do it? And do you have enough power authority to go and say no to it? If not, what do? We just don't get into a conflict. Again, the whole idea of conflict resolution is just not being in a situation where we are going to start a conflict with somebody. So if you feel you don't have the authority, or you don't have the power to go and say no, or to refuse, you have to realize that their will should be carried out, and you should do what you need to do. In the same concept, if you are the authority, you're the person who's making a demand, and somebody else refuses, you again have to realize, do I actually have the authority to make them do this thing? Do I go and say, no, you have to do it, and I want it done by the end of the day? So again, if you feel that you have that authority, you go and do it. But if you don't feel it, again, you just don't start the conflict. So we refrain ourselves from starting that little issue or that conflict before even it arises. So that's again being self-aware of what we can and we cannot do depending on where we stand. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And I think this is something very let me use the word, I don't know whether it's correct or not, but hip these days, and you will see a lot of examples of sandhi. So sandhi, another guna, which gives everybody a win-win situation. I'm pretty sure you heard a lot of examples over the years where one king and the other king came and made a sandhi, or two countries came together and made a sandhi. So win-win situation when both the parties they all get what they want. So everybody is just simply winning here, right? So like-minded people coming together, they say, I want this, the other person say, I want this, they agree to it, there we go, no conflict at all. So you just agree to something and everybody gets to win in a situation. And what are the best examples of this? And I love this one. So for an example, I would say this project, what we are doing right now at the moment, is the best example of a sandhi or collaboration, because Jayanta and I both are like-minded. We want to promote Sanskrit. We want to promote Sanskrit literature, and you all want to learn Sanskrit, and you all want to promote Sanskrit as well. So more than one party is coming together, a perfect collaboration going on right now. So best example, present example of this conflict resolution. So there's no conflict here. Everybody is happy. So, you know, works out well.
On that,
yes.
On that note, I'd like to interrupt a little bit.
Sure.
All of you guys, please go to the YouTube channel of Mr. Jigar, that is called Life Skills from Sanskrit. It is a very informative channel, and definitely you all will love it. Okay. He also has an Instagram page, Life Skills from Sanskrit. I'll send it in the chat. Okay. He also has an Instagram page and also a Facebook page. I'll send you all the links. Okay. Sorry, Jigar, please continue.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Yep. So I'll very quickly stop here because we've already stopped. Why did I start Life Skills from Sanskrit? I just basically feel that what happens is when we discuss about Sanskrit, people just automatically just start talking about Sanskrit language, and the conversation goes out of hand. And because of that, actually Sanskrit literature suffers. And I want to bring out how much useful Sanskrit literature is. And sometimes a lot of people that you can go on social media or people who are famous, they come and post questions like, what's going to happen if we learn Sanskrit? Why do we want to learn Sanskrit literature? So my basic aim with Life Skills from Sanskrit is I bring out the literature and its usefulness in day-to-day life. That's what I want to focus on. I want to bring focus on back on how Sanskrit literature is relevant. It doesn't matter if we are in 21st century and some subhashit or some shloka was written 5,000 years ago, but it's still as relevant as it would have been 5,000 years ago. Now, being an English teacher as well, I would say look at Shakespeare's plays, because he wrote them about 400 to 500 years ago, but we still like them. We still feel intrigued by the plots because simply they talk about raw emotions and how we live in today's world. It's not going to change. The same thing happens to Sanskrit literature. We need to make sure that we keep the focus on literature and the language both at the same time. So thank you. Yes, Life Skills from Sanskrit, a little humble experiment with bringing focus on how it's relevant and useful in today's age.
I have sent the link in the chat for the channel, and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So collaboration, as I said, this is the perfect example of collaboration where it's win-win-win for everybody. Nobody loses. The third one is Dvaiti Bhava. And this is where I think most of our life takes place, okay? It's Dvaiti Bhava means you somewhere come and meet in the middle. So both the parties drop something and they gain something. So if I wanted 10 things and you wanted 10 things, you drop two, I drop two, and we come somewhere in the middle and meet. So that's what happens when you cannot get everything. So if you get everything, it was the previous one where we called it Sandhi. So everybody gets what they want. But in Dvaiti Bhav, you're still getting something you wanted, but you also have to let something go out of it. So Dvaiti Bhava is somewhere. And the best example, my mom's here. She is my inspiration. And I think she's the best example of Dvaiti Bhava because whenever we go and buy something, bargaining, okay? The shopkeeper wants 50 rupees profit. My mom wants to save 20 rupees, so they haggle, and then they come somewhere in the middle. The shopkeeper gets 25 instead of 50. My mom saves 25 rupees, and there we go. So we made a bargaining, we met in the middle, and Dvaiti Bhava happened. So everybody got something out of it, but not exactly what everybody wanted. So that's something, the best example for Dvaiti Bhava. So these three are kind of positive, where you actually get something out of what you wanted. Another good example of these are your family life. And again, I'm talking about your family lives because I want to show how relevant they are. Again, so if you're sitting at the dining table, you have to decide what we are going to eat. Your kids, they might go and say, I want to eat chocolate for dinner. Are you going to give them chocolate for dinner? As a parent, you're simply going to use your authority and you're just going to go and say, no, no chocolates for dinner. If you finish this, you will get chocolate for dinner. So first, when you said no, you used vigraha. But when you wanted them to eat something, you went and said, no, if you eat your vegetables, you'll get your chocolate. So that becomes Dvaiti Bhava. So it's so local and it's so simple. So if you can use this, principles in your day-to-day lives, just understanding where you stand, it just becomes a wonderful way of living a stressful life. You just know where you stand, where you can go and fight, where you have to refrain from fighting or objecting things, and make sure day-to-day lives get a little bit easy. Again, as I said, you can use it globally as well in your workplace. If you're a manager, if some of you become, chief ministers or prime ministers in the future, of course, you'll be able to use this to have a wonderful, diplomacy policy as well. So as I said, local and global, these principles can affect all aspects of our lives. I know I don't want to go overboard when it comes to time, so I'm gonna stop myself here very quickly. We'll have a look at what three gunas that we looked at today. So we looked at Vigraha, then we looked at Sandhi, and then we looked at Dvaiti Bhava. The remaining three, Yana, Asana, and sorry, I'll just very quickly, Sanshraya, we'll have a look at them next time when we get together. Okay, I'll stop here and I'll let the floor open for everybody if they have any questions.
So if I might do, yes. First of all, I might do a quick recap. Vigraha means when someone has an authority, like a king or the head of the family, right, or a leader who just has to take decision by himself without depending on others. That is Vigraha.
Yep.
Sandhi is
just
when
very quickly there. Sorry. So and the other person cannot go and say no to it. Just because
yes,
you have
other
authority.
persons have to follow it.
Yes.
They do not have any other options. Then Sandhi is both of them are on the same ground and both of them are doing things for each other and both of them are winning. Nobody is losing in this. And Dvaiti Bhava is both of them are losing something but also gaining something.
Yes.
That is Dvaiti Bhava, right? So I think we can wrap it up here. Very good explanation of the first three gunas, that is Vigraha, Sandhi, and Dvaiti Bhava. And Jigarji, it was a great pleasure, and it was really, really very enlightening for all of us. And thank you so much.